So hello to everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the second session for the Horace Mann session. We have Jason Caldwell, who is the Director of Admissions at Horace Mann. Just a few housekeeping notes. If everyone could stay on mute, that would be great. Jason is going to talk about Horace Mann and himself, and then we will do a Q&A. So please, in the chat room, feel free to put your questions in there. I will also share Jason's email so that you can email him afterwards if you have any questions. So at this point, let's go ahead. And I'm an alum of, I'm not an alum, sorry. I'm an alum parent. My daughter went to Horace Mann. It's a great school. So I know I'm supposed to not be biased, but sorry. But without further ado, I will introduce Mr. Jason Caldwell.
And it's always, I said this in the last session, and it's true, it's always good for me to see Danielle. We met 15 years ago when our daughter started the process to get into Horace Mann. For 13 years she was at Horace Mann, and I don't believe Dakota's doing her thing in Cornell. And just, well, I believe that. I just don't believe that Dakota is a young, woman. Because I remember when Dakota was a little kid. So no. Something you should know about Horace Mann. We have a tradition at the school. We start off every meeting, sometimes almost every meeting, with 60 seconds of peace. Certainly when something has affected the community, either the Horace Mann community or the community at large, we definitely do 60 seconds of peace. We're clearly in the grips of a horrible worldwide pandemic, which here in the United States has definitely affected people of color much more than has affected any other demographic. And even in the midst of that, we're dealing with an epidemic of police brutality that has claimed the lives of so many, certainly between February and this past week, has dramatically claimed the lives of some key people in the community. It's hard out there. The kids are struggling. Parents are struggling about what to tell their kids. Our head of school, in the last couple of Zooms, he did a 60 seconds of peace. I'm going to ask for the same. So let's do 60 seconds of peace before we get started. So as I said before, my name is Jason Caldwell. I'm the Director of Admissions at Horace Mann. In addition to being the Director of Admissions, I'm also an alum. I went to middle school and high school at Horace Mann. My brother went to middle school and high school at Horace Mann. And my oldest daughter, who's in the 4th grade, began school at Horace Mann in kindergarten. She has truly loved her experience at the school. We're rounding out this thing this year. My youngest daughter, who is 5 years old, she's going to be starting kindergarten at Horace Mann this fall. So you can tell that I like the school just a little bit. What are some of the things I love about HM? I love that at Horace Mann we're able to balance an amazingly rich, rigorous, challenging academic program with a truly kind and diverse community. I love that we have the resources in our lower division to have a lower division chorus and band and orchestra and a women in science and engineering program and a fully integrated robotics program, chess for kindergartners, athletic fields, and a gym just for our lower division. When you talk about the lower division, the kids in the lower division get a chance to go to the middle and the upper division campus sometimes and experience our $100 million science center, aquatic center, and student center. Up in our Washington Depot area of Connecticut, Horace Mann actually has a 4th campus. So we have our nursery division, our lower division, our middle and upper division, and in Washington Depot, Connecticut, we have our John Jordan Nature Laboratory, a 300-acre nature lab that we use for outdoor ed, orientation programs, family get-togethers, gatherings. The John Jordan Nature Laboratory is an amazing residential program with 5 full-time faculty members that live there year-round. When I think about the lower division, I love that we have an amazing level reading and writing program with the Fontes and Pinnell program. that we're able to pay attention to concepts and not just rote memorization with our Singapore math program, our insane and robust science program run by Katie Diaz. And as I said, Horace Mann is not just about academics, or not academics the way you might think about it. One of the highlights of the Horace Mann School is our ruler program. The ruler program focuses on social emotional learning. Through the efforts of our head of school, Dr. Tom Kelly, and our lower division head, Dina Newer, for the last 5 years, we've been in partnership with the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, and we've been in partnership with Dr. Mark Brackett. Kids at the Horace Mann lower division learn the language of communication through their feelings and learn how to communicate those feelings about their friends and the people around them. Teachers have gone through this training and parents have gone through this training as well. When I think about the middle division at Horace Mann, I'm energized by the fact that we have an amazing new middle school head who's completing his first year. He's also a Horace Mann alum, class of '92. Mr. Khan was the head of the middle school at Bank Street, and Javed Khan was the director of diversity at Poly Prep before that. It's funny, his younger brother is class of '97, one of my dearest friends. Mr. Khan, as I said before, has energized the middle division, putting all of our innovative centers into one central location, the way kids can easily get the support that they need. So whether you're talking about utilizing our writing center, which is set up to help kids with creative and expository writing and help kids with publications, our math center that's helped to support kids with math, our academic center where our learning specialists are based, and then the ever so popular middle division reading room, which is a little bit more of a low-key place where you can do your homework and relax and have a good time. You actually eat in there. You can't eat in the other centers in the middle school. You can eat in the middle school reading room, play some music, talk with friends, read recreationally, and that's something that's important. And something I didn't talk about, in the lower division, in kindergarten, you have 2 master teachers. 1st through 3rd grade, you have a master teacher and an assistant teacher. 1st, 4th, and 5th grade, kids have separate teachers for each subject, but they move together as a homeroom. In the 6th grade, kids will actually have their own individual programs separate from everyone else. So you're not moving as a homeroom anymore, but the homerooms are still pretty small. You have about, in any given homeroom, 10 to 14 kids in a homeroom. Your homeroom advisor, homeroom teacher will move with you through 3 grades, and your grade dean will move with you through all 3 grades. Something that's cool about the middle division, our community spaces, one of the biggest spaces is our middle school atrium, which we use for grade-wide meetings. Kids use that place for recreation. Kids might do it for informal study sessions or formal study sessions as well. We have a full-time student activities coordinator and service learning coordinator in the middle school. Get a quick drink of water. In the 7th grade, in the middle school, we begin with organized competitive sports. Now, physical education starts as young as the 3s program and goes all the way up. But in 7th grade, that's when we start with teams. We have a robust assemblies program, a weekly staple that highlights cool things happening inside the community and outside the community, and something that the kids have enjoyed. As I said, the head of our middle division, his name is Javed Khan. He gives out something called commendations for acts of kindness that take place in the middle division. What makes Horace Mann such a special place, and I'm going to keep coming back to it, is this. Being one of the most rigorous schools in the tri-state area, it's a school that still focuses on the social emotional growth of the kids. As a result, the kids look forward to those check-ins, whether in their homerooms or bigger check-ins every Sunday when Mr. Khan sends out his Sunday email. In terms of kids getting what they need, this continues in the upper division with the head of our upper division, Dr. Jessica Levenstein. She's guided Horace Mann, in addition to the construction of that insane $100 million science center, student center, and aquatic center, through an amazing period of curricular innovation. In the midst of that construction, she helped change the trimester system to a semester system in Horace Mann, giving faculty members the ability not to try to have to pack so much stuff in to marking periods. That way kids didn't have to worry sort of about high stakes testing. We moved and made the transition from advanced placement courses to our own honors and advanced curriculum at Horace Mann. And she continues to oversee a high school with an abundance of resources. What do I mean by an abundance of resources? I mean 25 different student-led publications, 62 different athletic teams, JV, varsity, boys, girls, and co-ed, and 75 different extracurricular clubs and activities. The dean's office in the Horace Mann High School is incredible, as is the advising program there. The counseling and guidance program is great. And we have one of the best service learning programs in the country with our Center for Community Values in Action. It's the cornerstone of service learning on campus and a great resource for the people of the Bronx, the borough we call home. Obviously, Horace Mann is in the Riverdale section of the Bronx. It's interesting. We're in one of the most wealthiest neighborhoods in the city, in the country. That neighborhood happens to reside in one of the poorest districts, poorest boroughs in the city, in the country. Bronx is good to us. We're good to the Bronx. We have a dedication to us, to the Bronx. Back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, and just to show you that Horace Mann maybe was a different school back then, the address used to say Riverdale, New York. Riverdale's a neighborhood. It's not a place. Okay, it's not a borough. We're in the Bronx. So the letterhead reads Bronx, New York. I just threw out a lot. Before I take questions, I told you these are some of the things I love about Horace Mann. What I'm going to do is I'm going to boil it down into one thing that I love the most. I love the friendships. I love the relationships. 29 people that graduated from Horace Mann were at my wedding. One of them is my brother, so he doesn't count. Still one of my best friends, though. The other 28 people that were at that wedding are not related to me by blood, but they're my family regardless. I've watched my daughter navigate Horace Mann, building the same type of close friendships. It's so funny, just set up a Zoom for her and 4 of her besties. Horace Mann is a community first and foremost. I watched my daughter build friendships and bonds as strong as the ones that I've had for the last 28 years. That's incredible to watch and a beautiful thing to watch. I'm in awe of the teachers at Horace Mann. You know, we're pretty fortunate, pretty lucky. Timing is everything. Unlike the public schools that had to literally turn on a dime to remote learning, we wound up having a suspected case of COVID pretty early. And as a result, closed 4 days before the spring break. So we had almost 3 weeks to get our online platform up and running, and it has been incredible. I watched our teachers, administrators, technology department create an online platform that's second to none, make that transformation seamlessly. I watched as we got technology to people that needed it. I watched as we got food resources to people that needed it in the community, as we serve an extremely diverse socioeconomic community at Horace Mann. I'm grateful that while we moved to online learning and my daughter's academic needs have been met, her social emotional needs have been met as well. Nothing beats being in person, but wow, the teachers have gone above and beyond. Some basic information about Horace Mann. I'm gonna get another quick drink of water. Horace Mann is the biggest independent school in the tri-state area. We have about 1,781 to 1,791 kids at the school in any given year, nursery through 12th grade. In the kindergarten, for instance, we have 5 kindergarten classrooms. 3 of them are at our nursery division on 90th Street. 2 of them are in 2 freestanding cottages on the lower division. 1st through 5th grade, we have about 84 kids in the grade. 6th grade, we have about 140 kids in the grade. 7th and 8th, about 150 kids in the grade. And 9th through 12th, about 182 kids per grade. There are about 18 kids per class in the kindergarten. 1st through 5th grade, about 20, 21 kids per class. 6th, 7th, and 8th, 15 to 16 per class. 9th grade and up, 15 to 16 per class on average. about 42% of the student body at Horace Mann are students of color, coming from 154 different zip codes. 16 to 20% of our population at any given time is on need-based financial aid. I've talked enough. I'm going to answer some of your questions. Danielle, at some point, is going to put my email in the chat. So if anyone has any questions that don't get addressed today, you can always send me an email. I've been setting up. I've done this my third virtual fair. I have wound up setting up calls, Zooms with families afterwards. So even if you do get your question answered, you can always get in touch with me as you want to talk about the admissions process. And yeah, let's get started.
Thanks, Jason. Okay, so first up, knowing the HM reputation for a rigorous curriculum, can you share more about the development of a student's ethical judgment through its philosophy on citizenship?
So right away, once again, getting to our ruler program with the social emotional learning. Oh my goodness, it's been incredible to get the kids to learn and move beyond success and achievement, but to get to connect with each other on a more granular, more organic level. This is important. I have to be honest though, even in the curriculum, as academic as it is, those lessons are taught. So think about something, I'll tell you this. Fourth grade, they're having a conversation about colonialism, the quote-unquote New World. They get into a conversation about Columbus. Now, this is not your typical conversation about Columbus or the conversation you would have had when you were a kid. They get into the fact that Columbus wasn't such a great guy. My daughter raises her hand. She says, you know, Columbus was kind of a butcher. He did horrible things. Why do we still celebrate this guy? Why don't we rename Columbus Day Indigenous People Day or do that or Fall Weekend or something different? So this next year coming up, this will be the first fall weekend at Horace Mann, not calling it Columbus Day anymore. And two, they wound up, the teacher stopped the conversation. We wound up having an hour-long conversation with the kids about that. That's just an example. As I said earlier, in our upper school, we have our Center for Community Values and Action. Something that I did not mention, I'm so sorry, our STEPS program. The STEPS program in the middle school is a mentorship program set up specifically for students of color. That way they can get mentorship from high school students. Danielle, you're on mute.
Sorry, I just saw that prompt come up. So that leads to our next question. Can you talk about achievements in diversity, as well as are there support groups for students of color? What's the percentage of the students are people of color? And what is the student to teacher ratio? And in speaking of percentage of students of color, maybe that breakdown. So a few questions. First, starting achievements in diversity.
Danielle's going to help me if I miss anything. One of the things that we're proud of is our own freestanding. It used to be called the Office of Diversity. It is now called the Office of Identity, Culture, and Institutional Equity. So ICIE. So this is the second or third year. Second year, that's when the IC, third year?
Yep.
In any event, the ICIE works with the faculty members on making sure that there are things in the curriculum that address things to diversity. And you do bigger things, like have, for instance, one of the biggest events on Horace Mann's campus is our Office of Diversity, or Office of ICIE Fall Gathering, Spring Gathering. The Fall Gathering is truly amazing. It's one part celebration about the tapestry and the community of Horace Mann. It's turned into a quasi-admissions event, as we do invite new families to come and see us, and really see us just kind of really laid back. Everyone just kind of relaxed. It's really cool. What's so funny is the lower division turf field is right in between the head of school's house and the lower division. So we actually do bouncy castles. There's a bunch of stuff. We have speakers. It's pretty informal for the most part. And on the patio of the head of school, that's where we host this event. So you have anywhere from 200 to 400 people show up to this event every year, and it's a lot of fun. It's great. Percentage of students of color. 42% of the students at Horace Mann are students of color. It used to be where back in the day that was all kind of top heavy in terms of the high school and the middle school, but not anymore. It's really spread out. And that's something that we like. It's something that's really, really cool. In any given year, let's see, the student to teacher ratio is 9-1 at Horace Mann, I believe. But once again, you really want to think about it in terms of average class sizes. So in kindergarten, 18 kids in the class, 21 kids in the class. In lower, but you're talking about 2 teachers, 1st through 3rd grade in each class, and then 15 to 16 kids in each class. The faculty of color population is finally, over the last 5 years, catching up with the student color population. All right, so we've seen sustainable growth. So I believe, I got to check this. This I have to check, and I'm sorry. I believe about 32, 33% of the faculty and administrators identify as faculty administrators of color.
Nice. Okay.
I have to check that number. The student color population is ingrained in my brain. I got to check that faculty number, but I'm pretty sure I'm correct.
And what support groups for students of color?
Oh, Doug, I'm so sorry. So, like I said, we have, and we don't just have affinity groups for students of color. There are affinity groups that exist within the parent population. Danielle can tell you, Danielle was one of the vice presidents of our Parents Association for years. And then at one point also ran one of the affinity groups too before she became the vice president of the PA. So we have our Hispanic Heritage Organization, African American Union, a Chinese Family Network, Korean Family Network, our Gay Straight Alliance for parents, same-sex parents. We have all these groups for kids as well. Like I said, the middle school, we have our STEPS program. And then we also have student of color events specifically for nursery and lower. We are in the process, and we're probably a year to 2 years away to instituting STEPS at the lower school as well. So we had our first big meeting about that this fall to see what that would look like.
And just to add on to that, high school also has student affinity groups.
Yes, completely, yes.
They have like Blexus, right, for Black excellence. They have Mosaica, I think, for Latinos.
Yes.
So they have different affinity groups as well for students, and the parents have their own as well.
Correct.
How will the kindergarten admissions process adjust to social distancing, such as play dates, school visits, etc.?
We are working on that as we speak. You know, it's funny. Late applications have given us an opportunity to beta test, if we have to do this remotely, to beta test grades 1 through 11. And we are completely confident that if we have to do this remotely, we've got that down. We're still working on nursery, pre-K, and K. We've been in partnership with our friends. And listen, if you're crazy if you don't look at Riverdale and Fieldston too. We're working in partnership with Riverdale and Fieldston to take a look at what this might look like next year. So if we're on, just to let you know, obviously our focus has been on, setting up precautions for the kids, because we're 99.9% sure, unless the government shuts us down, we're opening up school next year. So kids will be in school, most definitely. We're going to set up all the precautions, masks, plexiglass, stuff for kids. How might that look for admissions? If we do it in person, what that will probably look like is cutting sort of everything in half at the very least, right? I mean, that's like starting to cut everything in half. So where we might normally have 4 kids in a play session, cut that down to 2. Where we might have 6 kids for 3s or pre-K, cut that down to 3 or 2. Really asking maybe 1 parent to come in. Or there's the fact that, and once again, our head of school, our board will make this decision. There's also the fact that we might go remote, and we're figuring that out. So it's a little bit of a fluid situation. Bear with us. By August, we're going to have it all figured out.
Thank you. Let's see. Will you be offering financial aid to students applying in coming years?
Yes. Someone asked the question a little bit differently last session. Let me explain. While I can't guarantee, because obviously COVID is already having an economic impact on the country, already having an economic impact on our population. While I can guarantee that we're going to offer aid, I can't guarantee that we're going to offer the same amount of awards that we do typically. And every year our financial aid budget goes up. But as you can imagine, we have current family members, current members of the Horace Mann community that are suffering. And we're already making an effort to make sure that they can continue their journey at Horace Mann. Once you start at Horace Mann, we made that commitment to you, to keep you. And obviously people's financial situations are changing. I know one person literally, he's received, thank God he has a job, but he's received a 60% pay cut as his business relies on events. So my point is, we are committed to offering aid to new families. How much or how many awards, that's in flux, as obviously we have to figure out the new families, but there will be aid for new families.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions that they'd like addressed? This is the time.
I couldn't have been that good. We were at the wire last one.
Oh yeah, right? We were right there.
Yeah, it was right there.
Can you speak on testing requirements?
Sure. So typically, I'll start from the beginning. Typically for kindergarten and first grade, we used to do something called the ABLE, Admissions Assessment for Beginning Learners. Unfortunately, ERB discontinued that. So as I said before, Horace Mann, Riverdale, a couple of other schools are looking for some alternate testing. We're in the midst of that process, and we're actually close. So we'll be unveiling that hopefully this summer, this fall. In second grade and fourth grade, we use a test called the IC Primary. It's a one-on-one exam that's given to kids, and so we do that. Fifth grade and up, you can take one of two tests. You can take the ISEE, Independent School Entrance Exam, or the SSAT, Secondary School Admissions Test. This is done in a group format. Once again, who knows how these things are going to be done this year, but typically done in a group format. And those are the testing requirements that we have.
Okay, would you please speak on 7th grade transcript for high school admissions?
Oh, wow. We're getting into the nitty gritty. So 7th grade, you're applying in 9th grade. Is 7th grade the most important year? It's definitely up there, yes. So you look at the 6th grade, first year of middle school, maybe your second, maybe you come from another independent school. But 7th grade, that's where a lot of things are really being asked of the kids. And that's where we look to see the kids can really manage our program. The important thing is that from 7th grade to 8th grade that you continue on an upward trajectory. But yes, not going to lie to you, that 7th grade report card is important. Now, let me take this into context of COVID. We understand that all of the grades, no matter what grades you're applying to this year, report cards are going to look very different this year. Kids are going through a lot. We are going to be flexible. We are going to understand the kids are going through a lot. We're going to understand the kids are doing so for instance, just to let you know, public schools, I know that for the second marking period, public elementary schools are not doing their traditional 1 through 4 or 4 through 1 grades or A, B, C, D. It's pretty much meets expectations or not. They're given a basic report card because, hey, these are extraordinary times. So we're going to understand. We're going to look at your kid. We're going to figure it out and do the best we can.
We are at the 10-minute mark, so
Yeah.
1 minute left in the session. I did include Jason's email, so if you need to reach out to him after this, feel free. Also, this session will be available on demand. Rise will send you a link where you can view this at a later time. Okay, so another question. Can you also talk about admission requirements for kindergarten? How many kindergarten students do you normally accept? And is financial aid extended to kindergarten students?
So I'll take the last question first. Yes, we give a number of awards to kindergarten students. It's one of the biggest entry points at the school. We have about 35 to 40 new kindergartners that will join us every year. The kindergarten process typically involves some testing, a visit to the campus where the kids will do some academic work and also engage in social work. Once again, obviously, we'll probably look a little bit different this year. We ask for a report from the child's school. Then we also ask for a parent statement, and we also do a parent interview as well.
And Did you, oh, you said how many students you normally accept?
Yeah, 35 to 40.
Okay. All righty. Okay. So any more questions? So
All right.
oh, okay. No,
Oh, wait.
that question. Nope. No question there. I guess if you want, I can just throw in some
Yeah,
filler questions. I don't know.
please do.
Does Horace Mann host events for incoming families with other families of color or students that were admitted so that families can get acquainted with
No doubt.
families?
So in terms of events for families of color, one of the cool things at Horace Mann, we have our Office of Diversity, Office of ICIE. We have a fall gathering. That is a huge event for families of color. That way they can just come see the school. It's more relaxed. Obviously, I got to be honest, all of our events are pretty relaxed, our open houses too. But, you know, we're in suits, we're in ties. It's very formal. We're doing tours. This is really relaxed. It's a barbecue. Everyone is just kind of hanging out, relaxing. You get to sort of learn about Horace Mann in a very informal way, okay? In terms of events for families that have been admitted, so families that are looking at the school, we have our open houses. This year, I can be all but certain our open houses are going to be virtual this year. But typically we have our open houses. For families that have been admitted to the school, they also get a chance to come back and visit again, okay? Ask more questions, kick the tires a little bit, and that's something that's great.
We do have a question. Applying to Horace Mann from an independent school in the city, does a student need to be at the top of their class? And then also, can you talk about transportation possibly
Sure.
from the city and from?
Not a problem. So kids applying to Horace Mann, not gonna lie, everyone thinks that testing is the first thing that we look at when you're talking about middle school and high school. I have to be honest, while the testing is important, no one's going to tell you that it's not. If it wasn't, we wouldn't do it. The first thing that we do look at is going to be the kid's grades. So we're looking at how the student is doing. We're looking at that report card. That's going to be very important. Not even going to lie to you. That's a big thing for us. But we're also looking at the whole child, too. We're looking at their extracurricular activities. We're looking at who they are as a person. The interview is such a big part of what we do. I got to be honest, the grades in the interview are tied in terms of what we're looking at for the kid. We're looking for that kid that's going to bring a spark, that's going to bring energy, excitement to the campus, and that's important. Danielle, what was the second part of that question? I'm so sorry.
I had mentioned maybe transportation for
Transportation.
city or
There we
Westchester, Jersey, Connecticut, Queens.
Got it. So we offer transportation, Bronx, Manhattan, Westchester, parts of Connecticut, parts of Jersey. And when I say we offer transportation, I mean we work with transportation companies that contract with our families, okay? So unfortunately, we don't do transportation Brooklyn and Queens as of right now. Now, there's some places in Westchester where local school districts will bus kids to Horace Mann, and even some neighborhoods in the Bronx. So for instance, the majority of the Bronx is taken care of by our Bronx bus, and I believe that's Selby Supertrans. But Riverdale gets taken care of by the Board of Ed. So for instance, my daughter is on the bus, she takes the Board of Ed bus. So it all depends, but we do offer transportation, or do rather offer access to transportation.
Can you discuss more about the kindergarten curriculum? What classes or activities are offered?
Oh my goodness. So once again, starting with our Fontes and Pinnell level reading program in kindergarten, Singapore math, robotics, which is robust, music, studio art, physical education, 4 days per week, recesses every day, robotics. For young ladies, we have our Women in Science and Engineering program. And what am I forgetting? Oh my goodness, chess. We have a chess program in our kindergarten as well.
Okay. Are high school students allowed to drive to school?
If they are licensed drivers and they are seniors, yes, they are allowed to drive, but they have to request a parking permit at Horace Mann in order to do that.
And does Horace Mann offer driver's ed?
We do.
Oh, great. My daughter missed that. All right. Are there any more questions for Jason?
And this is not Final Jeopardy. Remember, you can always shoot me an email. Like I said, this is my third event like this, second session today, but third in the last couple of weeks. What I do is if you shoot me an email, I'll schedule a time for you in the next couple of weeks. If I don't get in touch with you, or if we don't schedule it for right away, you have to excuse me. Even though we're virtual, we're in the middle of a number of different closing ceremonies and closing events for our seniors, our middle schoolers, and our lower division students. So it's a little bit harder, and we're still doing, ironically enough, admissions activities at Horace Mann. But I will get to you in June, and we'll set up a time to talk.
We have one more question. We have 2.5 minutes left.
Let's do it.
Do many students receive outside support, such as tutors?
That's
a great question.
Here's the thing, and it's a great question. I would say that there are definitely a group of students, a big minority, will do outside tutoring. So, and it's hard to gauge. We have ways in which we monitor it and ways in which we've leveled the playing field. We actually have a tutoring center in the high school at Horace Mann. Our academic center is set up for that as well. We try to get families to understand that tutors should not be stocked up on like weapons of mass destruction. And sometimes that's what happens. And don't get me wrong, I get it. And I'm a parent too. So this is coming from a parent. I get it. And Danielle's a parent too. She's seen it. She's been there. We all want our kids to do well. We all want our kids to succeed. And the great thing about Horace Mann is the kids actually all look out for each other. And that's really cool. But we all want our kids to succeed. Really, the only time to really get a tutor is if you need one. It's not overwhelming. But yes, people do it. It's not as big a part of the culture as it used to be. Is it still a part of it? Not going to lie, yes.
Okay. So it looks like we are going to be ending. Unless someone has another question, we have about a little bit of a minute left. But if not, please definitely email Jason. He's available. Again,
Please.
This will be available on demand. Rise will have a link for you, so reach out to them. Thank you, Jason. Thank you to the participants.
Danielle, thank you. As I said in the last session, you're a boss. We miss you at Horace Mann. Like I said, Danielle was a longtime member, executive member of the PA.
I miss you guys.
And we miss everything.